not have a quorum yet, but we anticipate having one shortly, so we're going to start the non-quorum things. Good evening. Welcome to Community Board 6. I am Peter Fleming, the chair of Community Board 6. Thank you all for coming out tonight on this somewhat chilly evening. We're going to start. We'll hold off on the adoption of the minutes until we have that quorum. So we're going to start with my report. As you're all probably aware, Department of City Planning has issued their planning document about Gowanus, and hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look at it. There was a meeting here in this building last week where they presented information about it. We do not anticipate it going to the ULURP process until the fall, so we are right now in what we'll call the information gathering phase. So this week, or excuse me, next week, 2 weeks from tomorrow, the Department of City Planning will make a presentation to our Landmarks and Land Use Committee to sort of bring them up to date on what they did. They were kind enough to do that same presentation for Mike and I and Mark a week or 10 days ago. So we are in what we're going to call the information gathering phase. So if you are a part of a group or know of a group that has a reasonable opinion that they want to make sure is included in the recommendations that CB6 makes to the city about how we feel about this, have them call our office and see if we can schedule a presentation by them. So, rather than carrying signs and placards and things like that about something that we're not even formally considering yet, we invite you to make your views known to us in a responsible manner, because if you don't assume that we're reading your signs and we're going to say, oh, sure, when I vote on this, I'm going to take that into consideration. Sadly, that doesn't always happen. But if you do come before us and even if you don't have slides, if you just come and say, we want to talk to you for 10 minutes about what we believe and why we believe our viewpoint needs to be better represented, this is the time to do that. It'll be a little bit hectic when we actually start, formally considering it in the fall. So we ask you to come do that now. We had a group of developers who came to us about a month ago and did a similar thing. And we're going to invite them to Landmarks and Land Use because, again, they had a responsible presentation. They were able to answer questions. They were offering something for what they were asking, so it was a fair horse trade. It's not to say that we're going to give it to them, but, at least we'd like to hear what they have to say. So, Mike and I met last week with the new president of Methodist Hospital, new in quotes. He's been there, I think, since August. It was at their invitation. They were very kind to do that, and that was a very pleasant meeting. Apropos of just the fact that we're on the topic of Methodist Hospital, they have reached the tallest part of their building, and they no longer need their crane. So 6th Street between 7th and 8th Avenue will be closed from February 21st until, that's a Thursday, until Sunday, February 24th, to give them an opportunity to get it out of there. That there will be signs, there will probably be a police officer, so there'll be all sorts of reasons why it's probably a good idea to stay away from that block, and I would recommend that you do so. It's possible they'll be done early, but I would certainly imagine that, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, taking those cranes apart is not an easy thing, as we've seen from news reports over the last couple of years, so we want them to do it responsibly and safely. The last thing I have is that, remember, if your term on Community Board 6 is up this year, your reappointment application is due on February 15th. So if you have not yet had a chance to go to the Borough President's website and fill that out, I suggest that you do so. We ask that, that you be serious about this, that you be willing to attend meetings. We need, as we've discussed, a quorum at these meetings. The more people who are planning to attend meetings who can be on the board, the better. Also, if you have friends who are looking to join the community board, this is also the opportunity for them to submit an application by the same means, by going to the Borough President's website. It's very easy, very simple. All they ask is that if you're new, you upload a resume. So, easy thing to do. I actually think we now have a quorum, so I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting. Motion by Bob. Second. And all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion passes. I'm going to now go to the district manager's report.
All right, I guess this is something of an oral form of my daily emails. Just a few quick updates. First, our very own Joanne Brown is still collecting shoes. I received some today. I have more at the office, and you were collecting them until the 26th? Okay.
Well, they gave us until the 28th.
28th, I'm sorry. Okay, so the 28th. If you see me, you can give them to me, Ms. Brown. You can drop them at our office at 250 Baltic. I'm sure every bit is appreciated.
Yes, they are. Honestly speaking, well, it's for the children that how you say, well, less fortunate. But this is a high school, like I said. You are more than welcome to come over to Wingate High School. And then you can talk to Mr. Rice, you can talk to Mr. Alexander. Okay, because those are my main two principals that's there. And you can also talk to Ms. Henry. That this is what we're collecting them for, the children that does not have. And if you see some of their little feet, the big people feet, you be like, okay, they need some help here. So that's why I came to you last month and I asked, could y'all at least donate somebody, like your neighbors, anybody, just give me some used shoes or your new shoes, however the case may be, but we'll be more grateful for it.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
and I
you.
do thank you.
Sounds good. All right, moving on. So I have a few things over there on the piano. One, the Brooklyn Conservatory of Music was nice enough to, after presenting to our Youth Services Committee earlier this month, or I guess it was still in January, free tickets to some of their events. The Brooklyn Conservatory of Music is located on 7th Avenue and what? Lincoln. Okay, I know there's a co-naming that I assume we were involved in before my time. It says like Brooklyn Conservatory of Music Way, but I don't think anyone refers.
That was an acceptable one.
Oh, all right then. So anyway, there's a bunch of tickets for free events, and then they'll be available at the office, whatever's not taken tonight. But thank you to the Conservatory of Music. Also over there, we have the notice for the Carroll Park visiting session that'll take place on February 26th, 7 p.m. at PS 58. It's the first time to really update a park that's been a great neighborhood park, but since the last renovation was in 1994, so if you have any thoughts on that, feel free to come out. I don't see our Parks Chair, Mr. Kelly, but I know he will be very involved with it. Also, there is the civic engagement calendar from Kathy Price's group, the Citizen Squirrel, which we did co-sponsor their civic engagement event, I believe on January 23rd at 51. It went pretty well, and my understanding is that some of these events will be continuing, and just check it out. And I'll send it out in an upcoming email as well. Secondly, piggybacking on what Peter said with regards to the applications, if you have any questions on that, I will happily answer them. And I know I've helped out a couple of people with their applications, their reapplications. Happy to do that. You can give me a call, what have you. Also, with regards to Gowanus, our land use meeting, which got a lot of attention at the Gowanus open house last week, will take place on February 28th, 6 p.m. at PS 133. It's on Baltic Street and 4th Avenue. It's in the study area, but it's just on the other side of the canal. So I know that there'll be a fair amount of interest in that. Seems like a pretty good auditorium. For some of you who may have been involved with the 5th Avenue Key Food, there were meetings held there when it was, I believe it was had been renovated. And lastly, the next full board meeting is March 13th at 6:30 p.m. at the 78th Precinct, if you want to put it in your calendars as we sit here. Thanks.
A month from today. February and March are the same place.
78th Precinct. Rachel.
So why don't we do, while we're waiting for Councilman Lander to take off his coat, why don't we do the one item on landmarks? And David, if you want to come up and present that.
We're live.
So we actually had two applications at the last Landmarks meeting. One of them was actually withdrawn today, so we're just left with the Cohen residence at 42 Tompkins Place. Here's the Cobble Hill Historic District. The plan in the center is the existing condition. The plan on the right, and there's a rear extension outlined in red. A single story, and then the smaller square on the left side is a second story above that. Next slide. Here you can see where it is, mid-block. These are photos of the home from the rear. Existing conditions again. Just on the lower two photographs on the right are through a chain link fence on DeGraw Street, showing approximately where the property is. Go ahead. More photos of the rear yard and views from DeGraw. And then a nice rendering here showing what the existing extensions are on the other homes on the same side of the street in the block. The yellow on the lower left there is the proposed extension. And here's a mock-up on the upper left. And I should point out at this juncture that the applicant told us that they were only, Landmarks had told them that they were only being reviewed by us for visibility and not for the appearance of the addition itself, and we did confirm that was true. Ty checked that with Landmarks since the meeting. There's some air conditioning units in the lower left that are going up on the roof. The elevation on the left is the existing, and the elevation on the right is proposed. There's a small deck there with a stair coming down to the rear yard. And some sight lines of the existing, and then the sight lines of the proposed. And then I actually am not sure what this drawing is telling us, but we have the photographs, so I guess they were just doing more views. And then the rest of this, I think, is just floor plans of the interior and some window details in the plumbing riser diagram. So we took a vote, and at the time, since we didn't know for sure if Landmarks did not want us to look at the materials proposed, it was qualified somewhat, as you can see in the minutes, by Mr. Sloan. However, since Landmarks has confirmed that they did not want us to comment on the materials and just in the visibility, the vote passed. Sorry, I didn't bring my minutes up. Someone tell me what the vote passed. Just 14 to 1. So our committee recommends approval. Oh, I'm sorry, 11-1. What's that?
Point of information, I guess, or clarification.
Sure.
There's an error in the minutes, I think, actually. It says that Roy's motion was to approve, and we were not voting on approval of a certificate of appropriateness. What Roy moved was it was essentially in the form of a resolution to stipulate that we agreed that it was not visible from the sidewalk, but we were not taking a vote on the appropriateness certificate. So to frame it as a motion to approve, I think is not really accurate.
I have to admit, my recollection is different. My understanding was that we were only voting on the visibility and setting aside the appropriateness of the, if I could finish, the appropriateness of the addition because we weren't provided with that information and Landmarks wasn't clear. We were only hearing this from the applicant. So it did turn out that the appearance of the addition was appropriate, then we wanted to see renderings.
Yeah, but what we were voting on was that we could frame it as an approval of on the visibility issue, but not on any.
That's pretty much what the minutes say.
That's right.
Exactly like Roy.
And then
Actually, Roy left it out, and I added that, so it was a combination.
Did you add the second one?
That's what the minutes say. It says committee agrees that the proposed addition is not visible from a public way and is not prepared to vote on the appropriateness of the design and for complete record.
Yes, but we were not approving a certificate of appropriateness.
Right.
So it's framed.
That's probably just canned language.
Yeah, well, it's noted in the minutes as a motion to approve. My recollection is that Roy actually specifically did not use the word approve, but and that's why it's framed as those two buildings.
We
wanna do a
can
front
certainly
letter?
finesse that in the
Okay.
letter so that we're not overstating our
Clear on
case.
what the board is voting.
Yes, the board should be voting on whether it's visible or not.
So we have before us a motion to approve that the addition is not in fact visible from a public way, 42 Tompkins Place in the Cobble Hill Historic District. Is there any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, we're going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion that we in fact find that it is not visible from a public way, as Landmarks asked us, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? One abstention from somebody who arrived too late to take in part of the discussion. Otherwise, the motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilman Lander, do you have some remarks, brief remarks you'd like to make?
I appreciate the question. Good evening. Nice to see all of you. You may have seen we had a somewhat kind of, I don't know about contentious, but dramatic council meeting today in which we voted to both, remove Reverend Ruben Diaz Sr. from his chair and in fact hold the committee that had been created for him for for-hire vehicles back into the Transportation Committee. And I'm obviously sorry it came to that, but there was obviously no choice in light of the comments that you made and the way that you doubled down on that. We're not going to tolerate homophobia at the council. And I think it's clear, really, and the speaker said this as well, like, he should not have been given that position in the beginning. This is not about, like, people's right to freedom of speech. It's about what kind of leadership we want for our city, and that's not the kind of leadership that we want for our city. So, I will extend what the speaker said. Like, I'm sorry, we vote all at once when we vote for chairs. You don't vote one at a time. But, I'm sorry that I voted to make him the chair of that committee to begin with. And I was certainly proud to vote today to take it away. So I want to let you know that. Close it home, a couple of really good parks things. Thanks to advocacy from the Friends of Carroll Park and Glenn, who I don't see here, but we are having a great, all right, Mike is holding up the flyer. February 26th at PS 58, we are doing a kind of community visioning and planning session for Carroll Park. One problem with our capital project system, of which there are many problems, but one of them is, in general, they don't let you plan for a project until after you've funded it. That is obviously backwards, but the way our system works, they don't, the money for like the design and architecture work comes out of the money you allocate for the project. And that means you don't get assigned a designer and planner till after you've funded a project. So you just like make up how much it might cost, or you just jump to what would we think it would roughly cost to redo, a basketball court, and they just have a standard cost. But if you're thinking about something like Carroll Park, where we really need to think in a big picture way about a bunch of the different elements, it's hard to do. Luckily, the Parks Department is working with us a little more, and so I allocated some money from a council member expense budget to the Parks Department so that they could do this front-end planning work and work with the community on a long-term vision for what we want to have there. So if you care about Carroll Park, come out on February 26th. Absolutely no decisions have been made about what should or should not be done there. It's been a long time since that park has had sort of investment in considering and refreshing. There's some uses that have been there a long time that don't get as much use as they had in the past. This is an opportunity for the stakeholders of the park to come out, say what they'd like to see, and then for us to make a long-term plan, which will take money and time to think about what it should be. But pretty exciting, thanks to CB6 for being part of it, and obviously anything that comes out of that will come to the Parks Committee in the future. Another community planning process is underway for the Litch Parks. That one more complex, but as you know, the 3 Litch Parks are now owned by Fortis. They have obligations under their agreement with the Parks Department created many years ago when those parks were created. And so as a result of the working group that CB6 and my office and Senator Kavanaugh and Assemblywoman Simon convened together, when they kind of in a backdoor way let it be known that there was going to be...
Brad, I apologize, because we're on television, you need to use that microphone.
All right, now I'm on television. Oh, very good. All right, that's another thing we're doing is putting these meetings on TV for all to see. So they let us know at one of the recent meetings that they were going to be doing work that was going to require the months-long closure of Litch Park 3 while they work on the building next door. And we said, well, isn't it time then for you to come forward and work with the community to figure out what kind of work will be done in that park? And with pushing from the Parks Department, agreed to do it. So last week there was a community planning session. About 50 people in Cobble Hill came out to talk about what they want, and that will be coming to the CB6 Parks Committee on March 20th. So they can present what they will be doing there and what what kind of work Fortis will be funding. And while that continues to have a lot of challenges, I think we'll get some really meaningful improvements to Litch Park 3 that have been developed and really dictated by local residents. So come March 20th, if you're interested. Sticking in this vein for 1 second on parks, we had a great hearing yesterday in the council's relatively new capital budget committee on a bill that I introduced to require the city to develop and maintain a capital parks tracking system. Right now, even if you're a community board district manager and you want to know what's the status of a project in our district that was funded at some point in time ago, it's obvious you ought to be able to go online and see that, but what you have to do is call city agencies, and you may have friends at them that can tell you, but that is not the right way for us to handle city capital projects. They ought to be online in a transparent way, and we're going to work hard to make it happen. I've got a lot of colleagues who I think want to make that bill happen, so I'm excited about that. Yeah, all right, so let's hear it for capital projects tracking. I spoke to you last year some about this new Civic Engagement Commission that the voters voted for overwhelmingly last November, that we think can do some great things like citywide participatory budgeting and expanding poll site language access, but that we need to make sure we get right and not just become kind of another mayorally controlled black hole, especially because it's got critical relationships to community boards. So I'm pleased to report that in response to some advocacy from stakeholders and folks that are doing civic engagement work, the de Blasio administration agreed for the first time for a citywide board or commission like this to put up a public portal to collect nominations. That is open till February 22nd, I believe. You can apply to be one of the 15 members of that commission or encourage someone else who you think would be good to apply. There's still a lot of work to do to really hold the feet to the fire of that and make sure it achieves what we want for it. But it's a good sign that they agreed for the first time to make a public and transparent application process. And we really want a great and diverse set of members. And one critical perspective that we're going to need of those 15 members is somebody who really gets community boards and what their strengths are. We had a really good meeting, some of the stakeholders for that effort, with Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, who spoke loud against this. She is worried that it will impinge on the space of community boards. But we had a really encouraging meeting. She made clear that what she's anxious about and doesn't want is for that board to try, the Civic Engagement Commission, to try to push on to community boards its land use perspective, like a fear that since that's a body with a mayoral majority, if they provide technical assistance on land use issues, perhaps that would reflect the viewpoint of the mayor and not be fully independent. But gee, we worked with her on a couple of other really interesting examples. So, for example, providing more language access and translation services to community boards. That probably would not be done in a way that had a problematic political perspective. You would just open up community boards to a lot more people if that board, and similarly with technology, it's fine to offer this WNET system that we're currently on now, but maybe what you'd want is some folks that could consult with community boards and say, what are the tools that you would like? A more robust and engaging website, different ways of reaching out to your community through other kinds of engaging technology. So there's some real opportunities there that I hope can be taken if you know people who would be good to apply or you are interested in applying for yourself. We sent an email out, but you can talk to Megan Flynn and she can get you the link if you don't have it. And finally, just I want to say a quick word about Gowanus, because I'm really I'm encouraged about the opportunity we have here, and critically the Community Board 6 has here, and you're going to be hearing from city
planning in just another couple of weeks. I know that some people don't like and obviously some people made clear that they don't like the open house style that city planning brought to the gym a week ago. But I do want to take one step back and remind you where we are in terms of the role CB6 has played, is playing, and can play, because I think we're actually breaking some new ground here. So almost 2 years ago, when city planning came to the community and said we're going to work on Gowanus, there was sort of an organizing meeting with a number of you in St. Thomas Aquinas Church to talk about what you wanted and didn't want in how the process would go. And one thing I remember being said was like, don't wait till the last minute and bum rush us with your heights and densities right as the process is about to start. Excuse me. And so they designed a process where there would first be a framework, opportunity for the community board to give its feedback, then a draft zoning, substantial opportunity for the community board to give its feedback, all before the point in time at which things have historically come to the community board, which is at scoping. And that's really pretty significant that they took that feedback and organized the process to do it. And that doesn't mean everything in it is perfect and that we should not keep pushing. But the fact that they came to this board with a pretty detailed framework last June, this board developed a great letter, and I'm sure you'll be pulling that out again as you begin to review the draft zoning framework. But that letter really in detail lays out a lot of issues, some of which I should say, got addressed in the draft zoning framework. So there is something new on a mix of uses and real ways of thinking about how we preserve light manufacturing, artisan uses. And then there's some issues in your letter that were not at all addressed, like investment in public housing or next steps to strengthen the IBZ. So obviously now that you've got the draft zoning framework, the opportunity to go back, look at that, think what's in it and not in it, push hard to let city planning know what needs to be in place as we move to certification, and how the board will be looking and thinking at it as the process moves forward is a really significant opportunity. So I'm not going to go into the substance or the detail. I'll either be here or we'll have folks here. I thought that letter was great. I think the board's engagement is great. In particular, the board's pushing on the IBZ. Public housing residents are making their voices heard loud and clear. Industrial business owners have a somewhat harder time kind of coming out at night and into these spaces. The role that CB6 is playing, pushing that perspective, really important. But I am encouraged by the way the process is playing out and how much we've got an opportunity to push hard on the things that matter most, and the central role that CB6 has to play in elevating issues and insisting that as this process moves through the public review framework. So thank you for taking it seriously, for all the work you've done in the past, and I know that will continue as city planning comes to this board later in the month. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. We appreciate it. So next is, I'm not sure if I'm doing this right. Next is permits and licenses. Rachel, if you can come up, and you need to use either this microphone or that microphone so that television can hear you.
Okay. The first applicant was 120 Hamilton Avenue, which is going to be the Hamilton. They applied for a caterer's license for a proposed banquet hall. This was previously, you can see in the photo, with a New York City Department of Transportation field office that apparently had been vacant for something like 5 years. They will only be having events when they're for hire, so they will not be having. They will not be open all the time. Only when they have weddings, birthday parties, other things like that. They do have an outdoor space, but it's only going to be used for parking. And there's no residential around there. And so we approved it unanimously.
Any comments or questions?
Yeah.
We presume that there'll be some renovation
Yeah,
done
they're doing a
before
lot,
the building
yeah.
is hired out.
Yeah.
There's a driveway that was a lot, but you go in through the driveway where the gates open. It's not, that's not the main entrance, it's the side, it's a triangle lot, actually. Okay, that explains it. It doesn't look like it's
Any other questions? Hearing none, we're going to call a question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Okay. The next is Purse Lane Catering. This is this is a full liquor license application. They do catering for various businesses, the parks, Prospect Park Boathouse, the Green Building, and really their application was so that they can do pairings for cocktails and wine pairings, beer pairings when they do tastings for clients. So they are not planning to have large groups, they're just planning to have tastings within their location, but they want to have the ability to have people have alcohol with their food offerings. So.
Is that the old ASPCA?
Yeah, ASPCA. Yeah. So,
Still a blame site more attractive than the other one.
and so we also approved this unanimously.
Any comments or questions?
Just one. Most of the time when we approve these, they're one-story structures. I'm curious what they're looking for in the structure with these. They're obviously going to have some very large events?
No, it's mostly for their preparation. They're not planning to have events within there. They're bringing people in for their, for tastings. They're not planning to have large groups there.
It seems like a very big building for food prep.
They're, this,
It's really, if you're interested in using them for your catering purposes, then you would just come here as a tasting,
taste,
taste
yeah.
the food.
All right.
The drinks, but they're not going to do any catering there.
no.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, you need a license in order to do the tasting.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we're going to call the question. All those in favor of a full liquor license for
Purse Lane at 233 Butler Street, please say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Again, passes unanimously. And now on to the last one, 117 Ferris Street.
Okay, so this is for Hope Pizzeria, and this is going to be on the, across the street, I think the Valentino
Pier.
Valentino, thank you, the Valentino Pier. Are opening a Roman-style brick oven pizza place. They will have no live music, just recorded music. Want to partner with local producers, and basically they've lived in the area for a number of years and feel that this is a place that they can that really needs food options, and so that's why they wanted to open this place. And there were people from the community that had come to speak on this because they were looking forward to. They had some questions about the location and about the pizza boxes, but they were able to answer it, and so it passed unanimously.
Any comments or questions? Pauline.
Pizza boxes, we were only talking about littering.
Yeah.
As to what would happen when somebody uses or buys, how they would handle the litter that may be created on the pier.
Yeah, I mean, she talked about looking into other options for pizza boxes.
Great.
Just one question. There's not much public transportation there. People would be coming down by probably private transportation or Uber or any of the other car services. Did they say anything about parking for their guests?
No.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we're going to call.
When I go to Valentino Beer.
Hearing none, absent that one.
We can use a comfort station.
We are going to take a vote on 117 Ferris Street on a on-premises liquor license. All those in favor, please say aye.
God bless you.
All those against? Any abstentions? One abstention over there. With cause, okay. Okay, thank you very much. The next one is Transportation and Public Safety, and that's Eric.
Okay, we had a presentation of consideration of a proposal by PokeWorks or PokeWorks. I'm not quite clear on my pronunciation, for installation of an NYC DOT street seat at or near 258 7th Avenue, which is between 5th and 6th Streets on the west side of 7th Avenue and Park Slope. This is the current location of the one street seat we have in CB6, which is at Sky Ice on 5th Avenue and St. Mark's Place. It was installed, I believe, a year and a half ago, proved very popular at that location, and what we'll see at this proposed location is a similar setup. Here on the map, you can see right in the middle, there's a little red marker at 258 7th Avenue. And that is PokeWorks that opened, I think, about 3 months ago, next door to La Bruschetta Pizza and Pasta, and then the Greenwood Baptist Church is on the other side. Just a little bit about the business. They are a national franchise, the nation's leading poke bowl fast casual dining experience, according to them. It's a seafood-based menu in bowls, a lot of fresh, typically raw seafood. Their plan is to open a number of locations in Brooklyn over the next few years.
I tried the place, it's good.
Howard says it's good. So, the Street Seats program. The Street Seats program is an application-based program, so businesses apply to DOT. They need to sponsor the project. They come to community boards for approval. They're typically installed along the curb in the parking lane. Site design can vary a bit based on what they'd like to do there, and they're typically deployed seasonally, generally beginning in March and running through November, maybe into December, depending on weather patterns. Peter, do you want me to recognize her?
Are you done?
No, but that's a question. The last one that you had the pokey whatever thing on, it said 278, 7th Avenue, but the
That should be
application said
258.
258.
That's typo.
Oh, okay. That's
Good catch. 7th Avenue between 5th and 6th. 5th and 6th Streets.
Kind of catty corner from the hospital.
Yeah. So there are a set of design guidelines that NYC DOT puts out. The platform itself is 6 feet wide, 36 inches high, refers to the what you like the benches and planters you see there. The platform itself is flush with the curb to allow for accessibility. Visually, the edges are permeable. There's some vertical elements that are allowed. You can put umbrellas or things like that. They are ADA accessible, and the furniture is movable, so it can either be brought into the store at the end of the day or locked up on site. This is just a sort of schematic to show the allowable dimensions. These typically have a wheel stop bar before them, as you see in the right-hand corner, some flex delineators, some white parking striping to indicate the parameters of the space.
Are you saying, I missed it, are you saying this is going into the street?
Yeah.
When he's done, then we'll recognize questions.
So these are open to the public. They are not exclusive to the sponsoring partner. No alcohol or smoking is allowed in the space. No commercial activities, so no waiter service. You can bring your food from anywhere. You can just sit there with your laptop. You don't have to patronize the business. The movable furniture is closed or removed and stored by the partner at the end of the day, and the partner is responsible for maintenance via an agreement. That's an example of the signage that goes up with these around the city. Benefits are a more active street life, transformation of a parking space to make it accessible to people in the community, improve visibility, traffic calming, some daylighting benefits, and hopefully some economic boost. In 2018, there were 18 or 19 street seats, I don't remember, 16, it's on the bottom there. 16 total installations throughout the city, a few in Brooklyn, the one in CB6 at Sky Ice, several in Manhattan, and DOT is looking to expand the program to 25 locations in 2019. And that's it. We'll take questions.
Okay, Bob. Yeah. I mean, I think 7th Avenue, and I think this is probably the busiest street on 7th Avenue. It's right across from the doctor's offices, the building, the extra building of Memphis Hospital, 263, where people come in and out, pick up their, I can't think of the name of the bus, accessorized buses, besides the bus stop on it. You can't even normally get to the bus stop because of the accessorized buses. You've got a crowd of kids coming in and out from John Jay, diagonally across from there, which if you can use it by anywhere and don't need to have even buy there, then the kids are just going to take it over at 3 o'clock or be crossing the street to get to it. It's a crazy place, busiest traffic space. You can't park there, even though it's just 1.5 spots. It's impossible to get a parking spot. People go in and out and looking for spots to either enter the hospital or enter the doctor's building. I just think it's crazy.
That's a metered parking space. It would actually only take one metered parking space because the church, which supported their application, was willing to let them encroach a bit into the church no parking zone. And the activity that you mentioned, Bob, all generally takes place across the street from this location. So the bus stop is on the east side of 7th Avenue.
Drop off, come in. Everything's double parked across the street already. It's extremely busy. And there are very few parking spots there between the hospital. There are none in front of the hospital on 7th Avenue. Almost on either side because there's a church across from it, a church now next to this. There's so few parking spaces on that block.
Or on the side streets.
Yeah, or the side streets, that one is important to mount over there. Suzanne, I don't have to drive there.
I will vote against it for all the reasons that Bob was just saying. It's, people going to a hospital, taking people, and now that medicine is becoming more ambulatory, people need to park their car in order to go and pick up whoever they're picking up. I just think this is not the right spot. It's pretty, but I just think it's just not a good place for it, if ever.
I will point out that the parking garage at the hospital will have about 900 spaces when it's completed, and also a large pickup and drop-off zone inside the campus.
Every comment does not necessarily require a response. We understand your perspective. Daniel?
I may have missed it, but did DOT's presentation did they address the parking loss? in the presentation?
Yes, it replaces one metered parking space.
Is it anywhere in?
That's crazy.
Wait, not in minutes. In their presentation, is there anything that says what the parking impact is? I didn't see it.
Nope.
No, frankly, the
No, it's not.
obvious, frankly, the only, real objection which you're hearing to this is parking related. Otherwise, it seems like a very nice aesthetic element to introduce. How they could make a presentation like this and not address the one single issue that would be, or the primary issue that would be of concern to the community, frankly, is insulting. It's sort of, and for that reason alone, I'm going to vote against it. But I agree with the other comments.
Yes, so do
Is
I.
it right to be recognized? Okay.
Why not? Why isn't it in their presentation?
Daniel, I don't know why it's not outlined in the presentation, but it is one metered parking space that it would replace.
I too have, my kids go to school a couple blocks down, and my mother goes to Methodist, and across the street is also Rite Aid. I'm a little perplexed as to the reason why this is such a busy and congested area on 7th Avenue. If you ever use Waze, it'll tell you don't ever go down that side of that street at those 2 blocks. It tells you to make sure you turn on 5th or whatever else. I don't understand why this would even be proposed. I think it to me even a safety hazard, because there's so many cars that go up and down that street. And the smog that you would get from there, I will be voting against this based on that too.
Josh?
I think it's a lovely idea. I think it would be a great space for the kids coming out of the high school to have. There's not a lot of public space in that area, and we continue to struggle as a community to properly give those kids space. So I think it would be fantastic for that. I think giving up one parking spot and reclaiming a little space in front of a church that is completely unused for most of the time seems like a great win for us. And I think it'd be a lovely place to hang. So I'm in favor of it.
I agree with Josh, and I was at the Transportation Committee meeting where they did talk about, the loss of the parking spot, but more, the thing that struck me was the points that were made from the business owners and residents on how many hospital workers are having lunch in the area and have no public space outdoors to sit in. And I do think with the 900 new parking spots or parking garage, one parking spot for public space seems like a pretty big win for the general public in the neighborhood.
No, I think this is right. But they do not have a spot for the accessory right over at Dexter Methodist Hospital. I always ask the same question. Well, where can we have being dropped off at? Because when I'm being dropped off to go there, I have to be stepping out into the streets. But they do not have a spot just for accessorized vehicles. So but then also too dealing with those children, and the kids on 7th Avenue. I understand everything that they're saying. They are absolutely right. But then it's going to be chaos during the summertime. So remember now, mind you, the children will be taking this spot over during the spring vacation. That's coming up in April now. They're going to be right there, okay? You have after school programs and all. So make sure that you pay attention to what I'm saying to you. The children will be outside doing all this here, and then you're going to have a lot of fights probably. We don't know that. But please, I'm going to go against this as well.
I'm so excited about this idea. I must have missed the Sky Ice version, but I think that a lot of the issues that are being brought up about that area being busy would be aided by this, because what we have learned from DOT is and other examples that when the environment is narrower, the narrower, traffic is calmer, and so it's not only a nice thing to have and creates a welcoming environment that I think our neighborhood could use more of. Like, we don't see a lot of, or I don't think we have any public art or innovative streetscapes like this, but it not only beautifies, but it also makes for a safer, more family-friendly environment. And yes, social community, social seating is not available in the neighborhood. I think this is great.
Judith?
I'm very much in favor of this because, as was just said, we need more public space, and the loss of one parking spot, it's going to be one private car parked there. It's not going to be an open accessified spot. It's not going to be available for everyone to use. This one parking spot is not going to be, it's going to be occupied by one car that's going to sit there, and that's it. Plus, the car will be backing in and backing out and holding up traffic. So having a parking spot, a metered parking spot, does not add to the ability to use the area, and in fact, it detracts from it. Whereas this installation is beautiful and will have traffic calming properties.
Peter, if I could interject one point of information. The folks from Pokeworks told us that they had applied for the street seat because of input they got from their customers, many of whom work at the hospital, and said that they would love to have a place to sit outside to eat in nice weather. They got letters from adjacent businesses, several of the adjacent businesses, and about 225 signatures, I think, from customers.
Howard and then Ariel.
I sympathize with the need for accessible public space in the area for people to be able to do things like sitting. But I think Frederick Law Olmsted would be very shocked to hear that that's the case for this area.
Ariel.
I want to sort of second a lot of the positive feedback about this because I think it's really important. I think we absolutely have plenty of ability to do much more within the street besides just the, what's there now. This adds another level of activity, interaction. It's one empty car versus 5 useful people that are actually enjoying that location. I don't even think it's not a difficult decision for me. I also agree that that street absolutely needs a little bit of a valve for the people, the pedestrians on the sidewalk who are equally, equally crowded as the cars are. So this is a little bit of a valve for the sidewalk. I think it's a very important, and I will support it.
Pauline.
I was a little ambivalent when they brought the one before Sky Ice. It's like 5 or 6 doors from where I live on St. Mark's. And I have to tell you that the community is really enjoying that site. And they're really using it all the way through November, which worried me with the snow, whether or not they would remove it, and they have. We have to realize that 7th Avenue is no different than where I live in Park Slope, because sometimes we have to drive around 1 hour to find a parking space. But there are so many people on 5th Avenue that if they go and they buy a slice of pizza, they have no place to eat it, that this is the perfect spot. They just come out, they sit, they can talk to a friend as they chew on a slice of pizza. So even though I am concerned about parking, I think it's time that we as community residents give a little bit for non-drivers who need a place to sit while they eat during the lunch hour or on a busy afternoon as they hurry home from work.
We've made a lot of points about this. Does anybody have anything to do to contribute? Daniel.
Add that there's a little bit of sleight of hand going on here, because giving up a portion of the no parking, those no parking zones in front of churches are actually used for parking by people with handicap placards. So it's more than just a loss of single space.
Yeah, anybody have anything to say?
Well, can they put some little benches down, maybe?
Yeah, I think I mentioned the fact of giving up the parking spot, but I don't see that as the major concern. It's a busy street with buses, with the accessorized buses that make it hard to see people, it makes it hard for the traffic to see people, to put people into the sidewalk, into the street on that block. I see it's dangerous. And putting kids running across from John Jay there is dangerous. So I object more to that part, that it's not a nice, simple place to sit. It's a dangerous spot for traffic and the people to sit. I can't see kids worrying about, and when they get out of there, walking across the street and not getting in the middle of traffic. I see the danger to the pedestrians and the danger to the people riding the cars. You can't get past from 9th Street to there on any afternoon from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Traffic is backed up. So, and everybody's looking at everything. To put people in the middle of that and umbrellas and things, I think it's just a danger.
On the safety issue, Bob, I don't believe there have been any reported pedestrian injuries at any of the other installations that they've done across the city.
Joanne?
And I would love a chance to throw in some new information before members of the committee get to repeat objections just in the future. One of my new points of information is car ownership rates in of all Brooklynites own cars, and we need to, as Pauline pointed out, make amenities that work for everyone. There's plenty of parking. You may have to look hard for it because it shouldn't be free, because our streets are shared public space, and you might have to work a little hard to get something like that for free. We should be providing this space for people to relax, get to know their neighbors. Another point I wanted to bring up is just, I have a personal anecdote I want to share too, which is that I was recently disabled from a major surgery, and there is a dearth of seating along 7th Avenue. It's very important for our disabled neighbors, it's very important for our seniors, and many of them do not drive.
Jerry?
Instead of making a comment, I'm going to call the question.
That's okay. If he calls the question, it stops all debate.
Would you ask for any?
You have to vote on calling.
All those in favor of calling the question, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against?
Well, yeah, there are people still have comments.
Abstentions?
No
No abstentions. Motion carries. We're going to call the question. All those in favor of this motion, we're going to do a roll call so that we have an accurate vote. And again, I will only vote if there is a tie.
Yep, you're doing it.
Victoria?
Call the question?
No, for the motion. We're now voting on the motion.
What is the motion?
The motion is to indicate our approval of locating this facility in that parking place on 7th Avenue.
You're yes?
Yes.
Jerry?
No.
Pauline?
Yes.
Paul Basil? Pauline?
Yes.
Leroy?
Staying for cause.
David Briggs?
Yes.
I'm yes. I'm no. Sorry. Francis Brown?
Yes.
Joanne Brown?
Nope.
Marilyn Carter? Eladia Casil Rodriguez?
No.
Reginald Ferguson? Peter Fleming?
Temporarily not voting.
Abstain?
No, it's just, we'll wait and see.
Defer.
I'll vote.
Rachel Freeman?
Yes.
Can you speak loud so I can hear? Howard Grauber?
No.
Silva? Ariel Krasno?
Yes.
Daniel Kuma?
No.
Robert Levine?
No.
Rick Lovegas?
No.
Eric McClure?
Yes.
Thomas Niskell?
No.
Julian Morales?
Yes.
Charles Pagat?
No.
Lasani Pratt? No.
Kathy Park-Price,
Yes.
Angelica Ramzari,
Yes.
Bridget Ann Rain, Jason Reichel,
Yes.
Alina Santiago,
Yes.
Deborah Scotto, Josh Gower,
Yes.
Joanna Ottman-Smith,
Yes.
Judith Thompson,
Yes.
Suzanne Tourette,
No.
Dolly Williams,
No.
Peter's off the hook.
Yes, the motion passes 16 to 13.
Thank you.
16 in favor, 13 against. Thank you very much. And our final motion of the evening is from Youth and Human Services and Education, and that's Suzanne.
So at our last meeting, we had a representative from the New York City Health Social Food Alliance. And they've been going around to all the community boards, PTA groups in the city in favor of a holistic school food reform package. And at our committee, which we did not have a quorum, there were only 4 of us there, so anybody who's a committee member, we'd really like you to attend a meeting. So we passed a resolution that says, we, the members of the Brooklyn Community Board Youth Human Services and Education Committee, urge the New York City Department of Education to hire a new head of Office of School Nutrition, and that person who they hire has deep knowledge, interest in the changing way in which our school children are fed. We recommend moving toward a minimally processed, scratch-cooked, culturally appropriate menus with salad and fruit bars, increase in the number of edible school gardens, allow more time for kids to eat their lunches, and insert grade-appropriate food and nutrition education with an emphasis on hands-on learning in every classroom.
Great. So we need that motion from the floor, please.
So
Move motion by Eric, second by Jerry. Any discussion on that? Sounds like a good idea to me.
Ariel.
Like K through 12, or is that like a,
I'm sorry,
is that K through 12, or are you thinking elementary, or?
I think they were mostly thinking about grade school, middle school to begin with, and hoping that it would move forward. Right.
And what is scratch cook?
So, as of the moment, most of the food that is served at school cafeteria is pre-prepared. Think of frozen chicken nuggets, whatever, and it just goes into the oven to be cooked. The scratch cooking is to actually cook fresh, unprocessed
Like making
food.
brownies from scratch as opposed to from the box mix.
Yeah. Yeah.
Judith?
Regarding the cooking, will there be home economics classes where students actually learn how to prepare food? I mean, I remember doing it in school where we had no facilities, but we had electric skillets, and we learned how to make stir-fry stuff. But it was great.
I would say that most schools don't have the facility to do it, but we're actually asking that they look into how they could make it possible.
It would work, I think. They did for us.
Yeah. you know, I don't know. This is really an aspirational motion that I think is how we would like our children to be fed in the public schools. And if it came closer to this, I think everybody would be very happy, but we might as well ask for the moon.
Well, you know that when you try to do the upgrades for, to get kitchen in the classrooms, you have to go through SCA, and SCA got to see if there's the correct amount of wiring and the correct amount of areas where you can have sinks. And then you have to have a safety check with your safety director to make sure that there are things in place in terms of fire safety and health safety. So that's some SLT team and your principal to see if those upgrades can be done in the classroom. And you can propose that in your capital budget modification in terms of getting your capital plan. I'm Bridget Ryan. I'm also an educator, and I'm with the United Federation of Teachers. So, so I'm just.
We used to bathroom sinks, as I recall.
Yeah. But there's a lot of things that go with that. But, if you want it, the principal, can do it. Food and Finance is a great spot if you want to check it out and check out how it looks. And they have how it's set up. They have a cafe system. They have a really nice cafe system where they present coffee. They have coffee for the people in the community.
There are a few school districts systems in the country that are doing. There's only a few. So,
David and then Jason.
So just to pick up on what Bridget was saying, I didn't hear the word facilities in the red. And if this is aspirational, I could just tell you as an architect that there are warming kitchens and then there are prep kitchens, and they have very different requirements. And if you're going to really, if you're going for it, I think as a friendly amendment to the motion, I would suggest adding something about not only making sure that the food is healthy, which I think everybody here agrees with, but the appropriate facilities are also funded and built to support this initiative.
I would accept that. I made the motion.
I agree. That's the one.
Jason.
There are prep kitchens in every school. One.
Yes, they are. Yes,
No, we don't. That's a friendly amendment. She accepted it. Question has been called. All those in favor of calling the question, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, we're calling the question. We're now voting on the main motion, which is to send a letter to the appropriate to the Department of Education, urging them to hire a new Office of School Nutrition Services, a head for that office, and that the person has the deep knowledge necessary to meet all of the requirements that have been stated, and that a friendly amendment has been added that school facilities be modified accordingly to allow that kind of cooking to take place. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we're moving on to elected officials. We have Jeff Lowell from Eric Adams' office.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Hey. Just to kind of, first announcement is kind of a follow-up to that last motion, is some of you may know the borough president has been pushing to get processed meats out of school because they're a group 1 carcinogen, along with cigarettes and plutonium. And we've also been successful in getting Meatless Mondays into a lot of New York City schools. We just announced a partnership with the New York City Health and Hospital Center last month to get Meatless Monday in 11 different hospitals across the city. So we're very happy to announce that. It'll be healthier food for patients in hospitals. I also want to add my reminder to borough applications for a community board are due by Friday the 15th. If you're having trouble finding the application on the website, reach out to me. I'm happy to help. It's brooklyn-usa.org. If you look under the tab that says community, you'll see a thing that says community boards. Click on it. The application's right there. I will also add, if being on a community board is not enough public service for you, the Community Education Council applications are opening tomorrow. There are two different applications: an application to be elected to the Community Education Council, and that you have to have a child in pre-K through 8th grade, and there will be applications to be an appointee by the borough president. There will also be applications to be appointed to be some of the citywide councils, but those are public advocate appointments, not borough president appointments. As always, packet full of flyers over there on the table. Please take them, otherwise I have to take them home. And just a couple of events that are coming up that might be of interest to you. On Tuesday, February 19th, next week, from 5 to 7 p.m. at Borough Hall, there is a notice of property value public session. You can come, you can learn about your property value assessment, see how you can fight it if you don't think it's correct. Again, 5 to 7 p.m. In partnership with the New York City Department of Finance. We also have ongoing Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday free tax filing. There are income requirements, and you do need an appointment, but they're on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. You have to call for the appointment. It's all in the packet. If you take it with you, and I don't have to take it home, right over there. And I will also mention we're having Black History Month in February, on February 27th, and we're honoring educators this year. And our keynote speaker is David Banks from Eagle Academy. And if you haven't seen David Banks speak on education, do yourself a favor and be there on February 27th and listen to him. It's quite inspiring. So that's all I have tonight.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
Renate Widdison from Councilmember Menchaca's office. She left. Okay. Megan Flynn from Brad Lander's office. Here, you have to use one of these, so we're going to pass that.
Hi, everybody. So I just have one more legislation update for you. Today, the council member also introduced legislation on the floor for Just Cause, which would require companies like McDonald's and fast food chains to provide cause for firing at-will employees. The PB ballot is in and official. We have PB Vote Week a little early this year. It's going to be March 30th to April 7th. We will have a weekend at the back end of that where we will be in stationary places around the district, and then throughout the week there will be pop-up locations at libraries and schools and around the district where you can go and you can vote. And that's all I have today. Any comments or questions? Thank you.
The next one would be Nicole Hunt from Bobby Carroll's office. Please use the official microphone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole from Assemblymember Robert Carroll's office. I'm here to say that lots of good stuff happening in Albany. We're all very excited about it. So there's the big thing that's happening now is the budget. There's going to be a couple of budget town halls. First one is Monday, February 25th at PS 139, and then Thursday, March 21st at PS 10. These flyers are up here on the piano for anyone who's interested in that. It's a good time to come out and ask questions about how some of this great new legislation that's getting passed is going to get funded and how that's going to affect our district. So come on out and let us know what you want to see funded.
Emma Rooney from Felix Ortiz's office.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Emma. I'm here from Assemblyman Ortiz's office. Big news this week from us is that the Assemblyman announced that he's going to be sponsoring the Green New Deal for New York Act in the State Assembly. The legislation will establish a Green New Deal for New York task force. The task force would develop a plan along with legislative language for the New York State to become greenhouse gas emissions neutral by 2030. By transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to one based entirely on clean, renewable energy. So this is really exciting. Couple of events coming up. On March 6th, we will have the Italian-American Cancer Foundation's mobile mammogram bus in Red Hook in front of the Red Hook Public Library from 9:30 to 4:30. Call our office to make an appointment. These are free. You don't have to be insured. Deductibles are waived. Call us to make an appointment. And then our next second Saturday policy forum in the district office will be March 9th. Thank you.
Before I go on, somebody just told me that unfortunately, friendly amendments are not accepted during full board meetings, only in committee meetings. The suggestion that was made by friendly amendment is innocuous and easy enough to include in our letter, so we're just going to take it as that. But for future reference, you cannot make friendly amendments at a full board meeting, only at a committee meeting. Next one is Ricky Gross from Joanne Simon's office.
Hey everybody, I'm here from Assemblymember Joanne Simon's office. First things first, as Nicole said, there's a lot of really great stuff going on in Albany. I encourage everyone to take some of our flyers. We have a lot of information about some great bills that passed, two of which were Assemblymember Simon's. One of them was her ERPO bill, which is a gun violence prevention bill, also carried by Senator Kavanaugh in the Senate, and her LLC loophole bill to close the LLC loophole was part of the voting rights package that was passed a couple weeks ago. Tomorrow from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. we have a Java with Joanne in Borum Hill. We'd love to see all of you there. It's going to be at Rucola on 190 Dean Street. And anyone can come and just chat with Joanne about whatever they want. We also have a lot of information in here about congestion pricing, what that's looking like in the budget for right now. A lot of budget hearings going on. There was one about the transportation where the Assembly member had the opportunity to ask questions about the BQE. If you're interested, we have that all on our website. And that's about it. Oh, just a reminder that there is a special election on February 26th, so exercise your rights, people. Thanks.
Thank you. Oscar Jonas from Velman at Montgomery's office.
I'll be brief. Our office, in coordination with the borough president, Assemblywoman Tremaine Wright, and a few other electeds to final list, we're working on it. It will be shared via social media and other methods. Notice of a joint hearing on foreclosure and equity loss among homeowners in Brooklyn. It will be taking place Friday, March the 15th, 2019, from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Brooklyn Borough Hall. This is a legislative hearing. It'll examine the crisis facing homeowners, particularly homeowners of color, in neighborhoods throughout Brooklyn. As New York City becomes less and less affordable, seniors and homeowners of color in rapidly gentrifying neighborhoods are especially vulnerable. The loss of these homes, often owned generationally, have also helped fuel the homeless crisis in our city. It's not the only impacts the owner, but also the tenants who reside in these buildings. These are issues that include things like redlining of minority communities, deed theft, equity theft, impact of municipal liens and property loss due to sewer and water charges, predatory foreclosure practices, and reverse mortgages and their impact on senior home ownership. So this is a hearing we'll be hosting at Brooklyn Borough Hall, if those of you are interested. We don't have a finalized flyer yet, but I'll make sure it's on the senator's social media, and if Michael will help us share it throughout the community board. If all who are interested, you can call the office, ask for me for more details as we move forward in the finalization of the co-sponsorship. But we'll be sharing this, so if any of you are interested in this or have an unfortunate experience to share during this, please join us. Thank you.
Danielle Zuckerman from Brian Kavanaugh's office.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. How's it going? Great. So some of our state colleagues mentioned the great things we're doing in Albany. We did a whole package of election reforms, which, increase the likelihood that people can vote, and the LLC loophole bill that Ricky mentions reforms the campaign finance system. We did a whole package of gun violence prevention laws where the crux is basically to keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them. We got the Reproductive Health Act passed and the DREAM Act and many other things that have been in the pipeline. Now we're kind of getting down and dirty with the budget. Part of that is making sure that the organizations that serve the community have the resources they need to continue to provide those crucial services. There were some hearings recently. There was one in Albany this week, and there's going to be one tomorrow in Manhattan on the Climate and Community Protection Act. That is supposed to, protect us from climate change in various ways and protect some of the communities that have been historically affected by pollution and other, industrial issues. One of the other things we've been paying attention to is the L train shutdown, which doesn't really have implications here, except as it, relates to the G train. There was a briefing for elected officials this morning, in which they told us that the G train would increase in frequency but not capacity. None of this is set in stone, but that's something that we're looking at very closely. We're also looking for interns, so if you know anyone in high school or college who's interested, please send them our way. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Last but not least, lovely Tejada from Yvette Clark's office. And she didn't wait. So, there you are.
All right, thank you, folks. Lovely Tejada, Outreach Director for Congresswoman Yvette Clark. Just a few updates. The Congresswoman got elected as Vice Chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee. She's also serving on the Homeland Security Committee. Fortunately, it looks like Democrats secured a framework agreement to secure the border and prevent another shutdown. This month, the Congresswoman attended a number of committee hearings on the House Committee of Energy and Commerce, including preserving an open internet for consumers, small businesses, and free speech, as well as Time for Action addressing the environmental and economic effects of climate change. She introduced 2 bills, Ellie's Law and the Breathe Act. She also signed on to the Green New Deal resolution introduced in the House. And I have some information regarding a Congressional Black Caucus scholarship opportunity that I left on the piano if anyone's interested. Thank you.
And actually, last but not least, we have Jonathan from Zellner Myra's office.
Hi, everyone. Yes. I'll be really, really quick. So echoing everything about Albany, doing amazing things there. Thank you all for talking about that. Secondly, we have office hours set up all over the district, so that includes closest to here, I think, would be Crown Heights. So if you want to come meet with our staff, we'll have people there most of the week. I have a flyer about that. Secondly, we're sending out newsletters soon, so if you have any, or thirdly, if you have any events or anything you'd like us to let people know about that are going on in the district, please let me know. And legislation-wise, another thing that we introduced is the Prison Minimum Wage Act. So I'm sure that a lot of you were following what was happening at MDC. That's a federal facility, but state facilities also have a lot of problems that we have to deal with. And one of those things is the fact that people are making slavery-level wages in these prisons. So we introduced the Prison Minimum Wage Act a couple weeks ago, and we're going to be working really hard on that. And that's really important. And finally, yesterday was my birthday, which is relevant because I got a lot of sweets that I do not want to eat any more of, so I have a whole package of Tate's cookies. So if you want any cookies, come see me. I will give them to you so that I will not eat them. All right? That's it. Thank you.
You should have gave it to the executive committee.
Oh, yeah. Give it to you.
Priority.
Happy birthday. Any new business? Kathy.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to make a few quick announcements. Thank you, Jeff, for bringing up the CEC elections. I, as a CEC co-vice president for District 15, wanted to encourage other folks to run. I want to serve as a resource for people who are interested because the process is very murky and not transparent. It benefits those who are already CEC members or are PTA insiders. There are about 100 voters, PTA voters, and they should be voting for the school communities, but the information, it doesn't end up working out that way. But I would love to help people who are interested in running, especially those who are not PTA in the PTA loop or are in underserved communities. Also, participatory budgeting came up earlier. I want to just point out that I have two proposals on the ballot that I'm really excited about. Litchfield Sidewalk. It's a sidewalk in the Litchfield Villa parking lot, and the Garden Train tool sharing library for the public school gardens of School District 15. And then at the last meeting, I mentioned Citizen Squirrel. We had the workshop that CB6 sponsored. I'm grateful for Peter and Mike's support of that and participation. It was great. Red Hook Star Review was there to cover, Park Slope Patch, about 50 families. And I created a template, so if anyone wants to do a free public workshop in another neighborhood, I'd love to help make that happen. And I'm also creating a directory of family a resource guide for families with young children. So if folks have opportunities that address families with elementary school children, like engagement opportunities, volunteer opportunities, or information, I am collecting that data. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Leroy? Motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.